picture is worth 1,000 words. Sometimes one word is worth 1,000 pictures. For example, SHALOM. It means peace, wholeness, prosperity, tranquility, completeness. And each one of those, if you look at the definition of each one of those, it's going to paint a list of pictures. Paints a number of pictures in my mind, and that's how my mind works. It's very image oriented, and so it's hard for me to share my thoughts with you unless I got a visual aid. So we're going to paint a picture today. Actually, no, we're going to do a very primitive sketch, but what I'm here to talk about is unity. And shalom means harmony, means human, means harmony, it means unity. I'm going to have a hard time if I keep getting my tongue tangled up. So this is the topic, is unity, and we'll start with level playing field, level ground, bigger than you can imagine. But we'll start with this is a level playing field. We'll call it common ground, something that we all have in common, no matter who you are, where you're from, how old you are, what you think, what you believe. One thing we all got in common, and that's the knowledge of good and evil. I've covered this in a previous video with this whiteboard, but we're going to see what we can do here with it today. So, we got good and evil, and that's something that I don't think anybody's going to argue with. Good exists, evil exists, and there's a gray area in between. Everybody might draw the line somewhere along here. We might have a different list of what's good, what's evil, but it's duality. Whether it's life and death, whether it's light and dark, hard and soft, hot and cold. It's an existence of duality. You might say that it's imperfect, that everything opposes each other, but they're perfectly in balance. So we can look at this line here, that it represents common ground, and that it represents all of humanity, because this is what we've all got in common, and we're all somewhere along this line is you, somewhere along this line is me. My goal is to take us from here to here, and we'll see what happens in between. So I want to talk about this word for a minute, because unit is one, but unity is plural. That's two or more coming into unity. So it's not just about me. It's not just about you. It's bigger than me. It's bigger than you. And with that, I might have gotten some of you halfway there already. I don't know. Let's see. So we start out equal. And how do we start out equal when we're all different colors? We're born in different countries. We have different upbringings. We start out equal because at the moment that we leave the mother's womb and enter into this plane of existence, this level plane, we're all equally innocent, we're all equally vulnerable, and we're all equally totally dependent. Because if somebody doesn't feed us and take care of us, then we're not going to make it. This line also represents our journey from life, that moment where we're all equal, where we all start off the same to death over here. Because that's something else that we all have in common. If we were born into this world, eventually we're going to die, we're going to leave this world. So we've established common ground. We're all equal when we come in because we're like an empty database, ready to be programmed, ready to be filled with all the information. And we're also like a blank canvas that's ready for the masterpiece to be painted that tells the story of each of our lives. And just like we're all given a unique fingerprint, we're all given a unique DNA, we're all given a unique individual personality, we all live a unique life. So it's all going to be different once we leave this plane of existence. And we start with our data collection, and as we rise up, we start painting the picture of our life. So in the early years, we start collecting data. You know, some things are hot, some things are cold, some things are hard, some things are soft, some things taste good, other things not so much. You know, so we're collecting data. You know, everything is new to us. We've never seen anything. We've never smelled anything. We've never heard anything, tasted anything, touched anything. Everything is brand new. We're just collecting data while somebody takes care of us. And sadly, this is where a lot of the division and the difference starts. Because sadly, some of us are born completely handicapped and never become independent, and they remain that completely dependent their whole lives, always needing somebody to feed them and take care of them. But for, you know, the majority of the population, we live, we learn, we grow. Eventually we get out of diapers. I call this early stage the diaper data. Eventually we get out of the diapers and we get potty trained and we learn when it's time to go to the bathroom. We start making decisions. We start the beginning of taking care of ourselves and taking responsibility for ourselves as we walk through life, or walk through life, however you look at it. So here we are. Let's say this represents me. I'm not going to draw a beard. Okay, so here's me in my life and the picture that I paint. And I'm collecting data down here as an infant. And like I said, that's where we all start to go separate ways, because the data that I was surrounded by is different than it was for you. Some of us have parents that, as they're raising a child and they see the child wandering around over here, they give them praise and they give them attention and, oh, good boy, good girl, you're doing really good. And they start to wander over here. They get scolded, they get corrected, they get brought back over here. Some of us have parents that are really busy, and when we're over here, you know, they look over and they see you're doing good, they go back to what they're doing because they're really busy. And it's not until that child wanders over here that the parent, you know, looks and sees, oh my God, they're in danger, they're in trouble. They put down what they're doing, they stop what they're doing, then they go over and they tend to that child. And, you know, both good intending parents trying to raise a child, trying to teach it the difference between good and evil, right and wrong, however you want to look at it. But how does the child see that? The child over here, with the parents that give him praise when he's doing good and they give him attention, he's going to stay over here more. Whereas the child that's over here and, you know, the parent just thinks, oh good, I can go back to what I'm doing, the child's not getting any attention. What if that child wants attention? He knows that he's going to have to go over here to get it. And he grows up that way. Some people have parents that are hover parents, is what they're called. They want to totally protect their child. They'll stand in the gap. They're not even going to let the child wander over there. He doesn't even have a chance to make any bad choices because the parent's hovering over him. No, you stay over here. You know, what a sheltered life. What a privileged life. Eventually they got to get off on their own, and then they got a crash course over here. They got no clue. They're an adult. And they're like, how come people are so evil? How come people are so mean? How come people are so cruel? You know, it's different diaper data. Some people, sadly, stand in the gap and won't let the child out of this area. They don't want them learning anything over here that's good because the parent is that bad. Some children, unfortunately, are born into a dungeon existence, never see the light of day. They don't even know that this exists whatsoever. But I'm here to talk about anybody that might be watching this video. You've already left that. You've left the toddler stage to where you're on your own, you're making decisions, you're taking responsibility for your decisions. And it's about that time when we start walking and taking care of ourselves, knowing when it's time to go to the bathroom. That's when we get our baggage. And we all got baggage. And so, as we go through life, everything we say, everything we do, every decision that we make is either going to go in this bag or this bag. We could call them baskets. This basket or this basket. It's either going in this side or this side. And so this is what I use as a tool for working on me, for fixing myself. Because I can weigh myself. Am I leaning to the right or am I leaning to the left? But you have to break it down. So what I do is I look at it spiritually, mentally, physically. So let's look at the physical first. You know, you make a long list, a sub-list over here of the physical. You know, diet, am I eating good or am I eating junk food? Exercise, am I getting enough exercise or am I being lazy? Am I getting time outdoors, some fresh air, or am I always stuck indoors? You know, and everything about your life you can put on the scale individually. And it gives you an idea. What we're trying to do is we're trying to establish who we are, where we are along this line, when this line represents all of humanity. And we're going to establish, I'm going to establish who I am. And if you come along for the journey, you'll establish who you are, how you balance out. Maybe you can make some adjustments along the way. So, you know, also in the physical category, we have to look at our words. Because every word is going into one of these two baskets. And there's an expression, an old expression, talk is cheap. And in this case, you know, that couldn't be farther from the truth, but I get the idea of why that became an expression, because if I brag about, you know, oh, I can do a backflip, well, the proof is in the pudding. Let's see that backflip, buddy. You know, no, if I'm saying one thing and doing another, or I'm saying I can do something, but I really can't, you know, then it balances out. But balance is not good. You're better off leaning one way or the other, because you can work on that. You can fix that. And if you're saying one thing, if I'm saying one thing and doing another, that's easier for you to see, the people around me to see. That's usually something that I'm going to overlook, you know, and people will see me as a hypocrite. They're not going to put much merit into any of my words, because I'm saying one thing and doing another, you know. And words, talk is not cheap, you know. our mouth, our words have the power of life and death. And we're either speaking words of life or we're speaking words of death. We're planting seeds. Those seeds grow. Do they grow something in this basket or do they grow something in this basket? What do they become? You know, if you tell a lie, how many lies do you have to tell to cover up and bury that lie? You know, somebody tries calling you out in a lie, you got to tell more and more lies to make up that lie, and then you got to remember all the lies and who you told them to, and you know, most people understand that that's not a good choice, and it's not a good way to go. So, you know, talk is not cheap, and words matter, and especially that your words and your actions should line up. So you're leaning a certain way, and that way there's no gray area there. Or all of, you know, everything can be put on the scale one item at a time, and you look at it mentally. Are you an optimist? Are you a pessimist? You know, are you happy and joyous? You know, you can put each emotion in here, and just, you know, as you go through your lists, a list here, a list here, a list here, and you have to kind of balance things out. But along the way, you can get a good look at yourself. That's what I do. I use it to get a good look at myself. And if I've got too much in this basket on any topic, then I can't take anything out of that basket because, you know, I've already said that, I've already done that. You can't go back and change the past. It's already in that basket. How you counter it out is you realize what it was you did to put something in that basket, and you stop doing it, and you change your mind and you turn over here. What can I do that will counteract that action, that word, whatever it was, to get it tipping the other way, to tip the balance in your favor? So the spiritual, we really need to look at the end, after we make this a bigger picture. So this is a tool that I use for fixing myself. And you're probably thinking, well, how does that create unity? Well, one aspect is that if I'm focused on fixing myself, and if I stop focusing on trying to fix it, everybody around me, it makes me a little bit easier to get along with. Also, if I'm fixing myself, you know, and not fixing everybody else, that might make me a little more likable, a little more popular. I'm not going to have so much division in my life. You know, it's not establishing unity, but it's lessening the battle to get there with other people. And we've all probably got friends and family members, somebody that we love very much, but we've butted heads on one subject or another, and you know, they're trying to convince me of this, and I'm saying, no, I'm trying to convince them the opposite of that, and it becomes a war, it becomes a battle, and you know, where does it ever end? You have to find unity. So this, I say, is a tool for looking at myself, and it doesn't really work as a tool for looking at others, because you know, there's a list of data here, there's a list of data here, there's a list of data here. If I put my wife in as the scale, no matter how much I know her, no matter how much I love her, I still got limited data. You know, I've got access to all my data, but there's no way, you know, I would have had to have been with her every minute of every day of her entire life to have all the data here. There's no way I can read her mind, you know, to understand what's in her mind, what she's thinking. I kind of have to make an educated guess from what limited data I got over here. So it doesn't really work to measure other people in the balance, but by putting her in as the scale, I can use that as a mirror. Think mirror. My perception of her is what I see in common with her. My perception of her let's just say we'll put somebody in there, a stranger, we'll put it Don in there. And let's say I'm with my family, and my family and I are, having dinner or whatever, and then all of a sudden I make a comment of, I really like Don. He's smart, he's trying to help people, and he kind of does it in a weird, unorthodox way, but he's really trying to make a difference in life. And my mother steps up and says, oh, I don't think so. I think he's dreadful. He's rude, he's obnoxious. I can't stand him. I don't like him. And my brother steps up and says, what I heard, I actually heard him say this, that, and the other thing, and he's been divorced 3 times, he's filed for bankruptcy more than that, and yeah, I don't like him. He's got nothing but that going on. So an optimistic person is only seeing what's in this basket. They're fully aware that Don has got stuff in this basket, but they're willing to overlook that because this, to them, to the optimist, this is more important. And then, the one who just judges the book by its cover, oh, he's obnoxious, he's rude, I just don't like him. I don't know why I don't like him, I just don't like him. They're judging a book by the cover. They're not getting into any data. They're just going by their feelings. And that's pretty much neutral. They're not even taking consideration either basket. The pessimist is over here digging in the basket from the beginning. They don't even care what's in this basket. As long as they can find something in here, they don't have to like them, and that's the end of the story. So by putting someone else on the scale, you can't judge them. You're going to have such limited data because with my wife in here, I've got limited data on what to base my opinion on. If I put somebody else in here, I've got even less than that because I know my wife better than I know anybody else. So you can't use it for that. But if you put somebody else on the scale, you think mirror, that gives you your perception. Are you looking at them optimistically? Are you looking at them pessimistically? Are you looking at them, just on the surface and don't really care to do any research and find out what's really going on? Playing neutral. And that neutral is really key in all of this because, making a choice. If I told you, choose between good and evil, I'd say almost all of you, you're going to choose good for your life. But how many of you would agree with me that I just gave you 3 choices? If you choose not to decide, you still have made a choice. You've decided to remain neutral, in the middle, like the hover parent, right in the middle. No, 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 only looking this side. No, 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 only looking that side. The neutral person wants a little bit of both, wants the best of both worlds. They don't want that scale tipping to the right. They don't want that scale tipping to the left. No, we got to walk straight. We got to stand up straight. We got to keep these things very well balanced. We don't want to offend anybody over here. We don't want to offend anybody over here. So it's all perspective. We could put more than one person in as the scale. I could put my family in there, and that gives me my perspective, how I see others. That tells me something about me, not them. Because, once again, limited data. Even my family that I grew up with, I'm not with them every minute of every day. I can't read their mind. I don't know what's in their heart. It's very limited data, no matter how well I know them. So when we look at all of these things and put it on a scale, we can make this a bigger scale, put people in there, a number of them. You could put the country in there. You could make this scale the good old US of A. And right now it's more divided than probably ever has been. It's all over the map. You'd probably need more than 2 baskets. You'd probably have to have them going all the way around like a merry-go-round, It's like you couldn't get really good perception of that. And then the amount of data for 300 million people. There's no way, you can watch the news all day long and that gives you a one-sided opinion of a very small amount of data. And it's probably hiding more data from you than what it's giving you. And, no matter how many videos you watch, you're still only getting a certain amount of data. So you could also look at this as the Matrix. Remember the movie The Matrix? And over here you got red pill, and over here you got blue pill. Which one are you going to choose? Are you going to want to know the truth, or are you going to want to stay in the Matrix and just, no, I don't have time for that. That's too complicated. I don't want any trouble. I just want to go about my business and be left alone. That would be the blue pill. There's many different ways you can use this scale to establish who you are, where you fit in along here. It doesn't really tell you where others are, but for right now, we're just trying to establish, I establish who I am, how I feel balanced out. I've looked at myself with a long list of categories in my life, my thoughts, my actions, my words, my activities, your feelings, emotions. Are you always fearful? Are you happy? Do you trust? Do you believe? Or are you doubting and always suspicious? All these things help you get a good look at yourself, and you can work on yourself. You can make adjustments along the way. You can realize, oh wow, I'm doing that. I don't want to do that anymore. Let me turn over here and see what I can do on this particular topic to tip the scale the other way. And it's, it's self-improvement. Because if we're going to travel from all of humanity and arrive at an agreement in any kind of unity, you want to be your best. We're not going to get there by trying to fix somebody else that we've got very little of their data. You got all your own data. I got all the data in here. I got all the data in here. And with the exception of the diaper data, I can remember pretty far back in my life, I actually have two memories when I was in diapers. When I was 2 years old and a little over 2 years old. The first one was I remember waking up in the back of a station wagon, and I realized as I looked around the station wagon that I'm in there all by myself. But immediately I looked out the window and my jaw just dropped open. I was just, it took a big gasp of air because it was so beautiful. It was just a sea of yellow and orange, and there was these white poles going up. And, I'm just looking around at all of it and just amazed by what I'm seeing. Something I'd never seen before. I had no idea what it was. And then the back of the station wagon opens up, and somebody reaches in and grabs me, pulls me out, and puts me in a stroller. And I'm still just like looking around at all these big, it was an aspen grove. My parents, in the fall of my second year of life, so I was about 2 years and 2 months old. In order for the aspen trees to change like that, it takes the proper conditions. If it gets too cold too fast, the leaves will all fall and they're green. They don't get a chance to change color. And, sometimes they turn slowly, but it gets too cold too fast and they start falling too fast. If you get it just right, it'll go from yellow leaves, they'll get darker yellow, and eventually they're orange. And if they stay on the tree long enough, they'll go past orange into red. And that's what this was. It was just, in all the leaves, most of them were still up on the tree. It was just a canopy of this ocean of orange and all these white tree trunks that were holding it up. And, I'll never forget that. It was like it was yesterday, but I was 2 years old. I was still in diapers. And then 2 months later is my other diaper memory from the early diaper data, was when JFK got assassinated. And I don't remember, I didn't know that that's what was going on, but I remember what it put my mother through. I remember her being traumatized because I was so close to my mother at that time that, all of a sudden everything changed. And that was, eye-opening to me. It's like, I've never seen Mom like this. What's going on? So, having access to data, we can only go back so far. And the diaper data is really important because, once again, that's something that we've all got in common. We're innocent of any of that data. You know, we didn't pick what our parents were going to feed us. We weren't responsible for any of that. You know, if we were crawling around and grabbed something off the coffee table and what's this, what does this taste like? You know, we didn't have any choice in the matter as to what was left laying around for us to grab and to taste and to look at. You know, that was just all data. I seen a child that was, before he could walk, his parents were, I was 18, they were like 20, 21, and they liked to drink and they liked to party, and you know, they were just free and loose with everything, including their child. And I watched this child at less than a year old crawl into the living room, crawl over to the coffee table, pull himself up, start grabbing beer bottles, tipping it back. If it was empty, he'd throw it down, grab another one. If there was beer in there, he'd chug it down. The parents look over and see him. They're just laughing. This is entertainment to them. They thought it's great. You know, look at Junior. He's drinking already. He knows what he's doing. He's cool. You know, that's the diaper data. I didn't have that kind of diaper data. Most people don't. But some people do. So we can't evaluate anybody that we don't have all of their data. We can't even go back and get all of our own data back here that early, you know. But the first 5 years of our life, this is what I heard, you know, 40, 50 years ago, and it's stuck with me ever since, that in the first 5 years of life, you learn more in those first 5 years than you will the rest of your life combined. No matter how long you live, even if you live to be over 100 years old, everything you learn will not accumulatively match the amount of data that you took in those first 5 years of early life. But about the time that we get out of diapers and we start making our own decisions, that's when we get our baggage, that's when we start putting things in this bag, we start putting things in that bag. So we're all coming from a different point of humanity, and we're all painting a picture of our life. And they're all beautiful pictures. We're all beautiful people. None of us are perfect. We all got baggage, and we all got stuff over here. We all got stuff over here. But we're doing the best we can with what we got to work with. We've all got a different database. So, you know, if you're probably wondering, how can looking at ourselves like this achieve any kind of unity? And, you know, how can we come up with a uniform scale that we can all put ourselves on and be the same? Because, you know, I put things in this basket that maybe you don't. And I put things in this basket that maybe you don't. We're going to have differences of opinion. I like to fill my basket over here up with cookies and brownies. Next thing I know, here comes my wife and my stepdaughter. Oh no, those don't belong over here. Those going in this basket over here. So now every time I want a snack, I gotta go sneak over here to get a snack. But you know, that's just the way it is, because they have a difference of opinion. Maybe they know better. They have good intentions. You know, they don't want me poisoning my body with sugar. But we're not going to get into food and what's good and what's bad and what's poison, because that's a whole nother ball of wax that takes somebody who's more expert than the three-letter agency that controls our food and our medicine and things like that, because they allow us to eat things that the rest of the world bans. You know, there are things that go into our everyday food that are banned across the world. This is the only country where you can get such ingredients in your food that you buy. So we need to establish a scale that is uniform for everybody. What belongs in this basket? What belongs in this basket? Who are we going to get to decide? Are we going to get to go to the government, or one of the three-letter non-governmental organizations that actually run our government, or alphabet agencies? We're going to pick one of them to decide to make a uniform code of how we weigh ourselves in the balance? How high up in authority do we have to go? You know, let's go back to the common ground and let's see how we got into this mess. How did we get into this duality life to where everything that we experience is going to put something in this basket or something in that basket? You know, we could also look at this as common ground. It's all of humanity, everything we got in common, but it's also a spiritual battleground between the forces of good and the forces of evil. Where do these come from? Well, we're going to expand the scale now and go spiritual. Now, I know there's people that don't believe in God. They don't believe in the devil. They don't believe in heaven. They don't believe in hell. They don't have to believe in any of that. It doesn't mean it doesn't exist. Because somehow we got into the same boat, the same common ground, the same world of duality, to where we're born, eventually we're going to die, and along the way we're going to experience good stuff, evil stuff, a bunch of neutrality in between. We're all in that same boat. We're all handling it differently. We all got different data to work with. So we have to establish, how did we get into this? Let's go to two sources here, because apparently that's the highest authority, as high as we can go. Let's see if this guy's got any evidence, any good story of how we got into this mess. He's known as the ruler of this world. And he's been in charge since Adam and Eve got kicked out of the Garden of Eden. And they got kicked out of the Garden of Eden because of him. But that's not his story. But he's been in charge. And notice, his story spells history. History is his story. Everything that we've been taught in history books needs to be questioned. It needs to be rewritten, you know, because the facts aren't lining up with what we've been told. According to him, what are we teaching in schools? We're teaching the Big Bang Theory, that all of this came into existence with some kind of explosion where there was some kind of matter that scattered, and it's still scattering, and somehow some of that matter came together and formed a planet, and somehow all of us, 7 billion people, evolved from apes or monkeys or whatever we evolved from. How come the apes didn't evolve? You know, how come there's no transition of apes that are on their way to becoming human, but they're not quite there yet? They're kind of half ape, half human. How come we're not seeing any of that? You know, if we evolved from apes, the apes should have evolved from apes, and they should be on this line here with us. So that doesn't make any sense to me. When I look at the world around, everything is in perfect harmony. Even though they're contrasting, it's a balancing, it's a harmony, to where all of us humans, we breathe in oxygen, we breathe out carbon. And according to this guy, and if you trust the science, carbon is bad. Oh no, that's poison. It's killing our atmosphere. But yet, what do the plants do? They breathe in carbon and they breathe out oxygen. They need us as much as we need them. If we go carbon neutral, we're going to kill the forests. We're going to kill all the plant life. They're going to be starved for carbon, and we're going to be starved for oxygen. That's a win-win for him. So, yeah, let's go with the Big Bang and evolution. That makes a lot of sense. Let's see what his story says. How did we get into this mess? He created the garden, and he was one with Adam and Eve in the garden. They had unity with God. And it wasn't until he came along, because God put a tree in the midst of the garden. And he told him, of all the trees of the garden you may freely eat, but the tree in the midst of the garden, the tree of knowledge, you may not freely eat, because when you eat of that tree, you're going to die. That tree, the knowledge on that tree was the knowledge of good and evil, life and death, this duality that we're in. So he tempted Eve to eat the fruit from that tree in the midst of the garden. And Eve said, oh no, God said we're not allowed to eat that, because when I eat that I'm going to die. And the devil tempted her to question God. Oh really? You will not surely die, will you? Are you going to die just from eating a piece of fruit? She didn't even know what death was. She was just told to avoid it. Until she experienced that fruit, she didn't know what death was. She didn't know what life was. She had everything, you know? I mean, it just was. There was no contrast. There was no duality, because she was one with the Creator, and so was Adam. But she came to Adam, and Adam noticed there's a difference in her, and she told him that she ate from the fruit of the tree in the midst of the garden, and look, I didn't die. So Adam didn't want to be alone. He didn't want her to die alone. So because he was one with her, he chose to make the same choice as her. So then God comes along and questions them and asks them, what is it that you've done? And by this time, they realized, oh God, we're naked. They're hiding from God. They take fig leaves to cover their nakedness because they're ashamed. They didn't know what shame was until they felt it, until after they questioned him and what he told them. And he already knew what they had done, but he wanted them to tell him, what is it that you've done? And Eve, first he asked Adam, because he put Adam in charge. And Adam blamed God and Eve. He said, the woman that you gave me tempted me to eat the fruit, and I did eat the fruit. He didn't take responsibility and say, well, it was a bad choice, God, but I ate the fruit. You know, I just decided that I wanted to find out what life and death was all about. No, he didn't take responsibility. God turned to Eve and said, what is this that you've done? And Eve blamed him and said, the serpent tricked me into eating the fruit. He beguiled me. And so by doing that, they gave him the authority. Adam and Eve were kicked out of the garden. They're no longer in unity with God. They're separated from God. They lived for another 700 and some years. God said that if you eat this fruit, on this day you shall surely die. But with God, a day is as 1,000 years, and 1,000 years is as a day. Who knows how long that Adam and Eve had already lived in the garden in the presence of God. They could have been thousands of years old enjoying that garden just in there forever. There's no time, you know. But once they got out of his presence and out of unity with him and into the existence of life and death, they didn't make it through the end of the day on his day. Even though they lived for another 700 and some years, they still were fruitful and multiplied and replenished the earth, you know. That makes a lot more sense to me. And then, you know, even this world of duality, it's all in perfect balance. And everything reproduces after its own kind, just like what it says in the Bible. And there are many people who have tried to disprove the Bible. Scientists, archaeologists, because they didn't want to believe in God, they didn't want to believe in the devil. They figured that's just a book. Some man wrote all those words. Let's dig into it and let's prove it wrong and let's set everybody straight. The more they tried to prove it wrong, the more they proved it right, and those men became believers and followers. There's another story of a man that he was an investigative journalist, and he was an atheist. He didn't want to believe in God. He didn't want to believe in devil. He didn't believe in spirituality. There's no such thing as supernatural. You live, you die, you have fun while you're here, do as you will. And he married a Christian woman, and that woman started praying for him. But it used to bug him because, she'd disappear, go to church twice a week, and, he just kind of wanted to get her off of his back. And so he's an investigative journalist. His job was to look at people and to dig into this basket over here, dig up some dirt on them, expose them as being a fraud, ruin their life. He was an investigative journalist. If he wanted to prove somebody right, he'd go dig in here and tell them, yeah, they're telling the truth. So he knew how to investigate. He knew how to get to the bottom of things. And he thought the same thing. Well, I'm an investigative journalist. All I got to do is go back and do some investigation and prove to her that this whole Bible is a bunch of nonsense. And once again, he proved the Bible was right on everything that he could try and prove wrong. And he converted and became a believer. And he did a movie that's called The Case for Christ, because all the evidence that he could find only proved the validity of what's in the Bible. For me, I've always been a very visual-minded person. I think in images, and that's why it's easier for me to express my thoughts with a visual aid. So I didn't have any problem visualizing when I read God's Word. So I think to establish a scale that's accurate as to what goes in here and what goes in here, we're going to go with the Big Bang and evolution, trust the science, social distancing, get one of these and you'll be safe, you won't get sick, that kind of science, to establish our list of what goes where and whether we're leaning to the right or leaning to the left as we take a look at ourselves. No, I think we need to go with him. And everything that we need, all the data to establish what goes in this basket and what goes in that basket, it's all right here. And, it's bigger than you can imagine, and it's not something that just happens overnight. It doesn't happen just like that. I've been studying God's Word for over 40 years, and, I consider myself a beginner. I'm not trying to memorize it. I'm not trying to learn it. I'm trying to understand it. I'm trying to become one with it. I'm trying to get in agreement with Him. And as I read through this Bible, line upon line, precept upon precept, I don't use it to fix the people around me. I use it to fix me. Everything I read in here, I go back to my scale. And I put myself on the scale. And I use His Word and what He says as to whether or not I'm leaning towards Him or whether I'm leaning towards Him. And you notice that we've got some triangles here. Here's a triangle. Here's a triangle, which is the one that I want to point out now. Because just like I said earlier, if I give you a choice, either choose good or evil, I'm actually giving you three choices, because you can choose neutrality. I don't want to side. I don't want to take sides. I don't want to be on his side or his side. I'm going to stay neutral. According to this, that's the worst choice that you can make. Because God would rather that you're leaning this way or leaning that way. But if you're neither hot or cold, then you're lukewarm. And the Bible says, I would rather you be hot or cold, but you are neither, you are lukewarm. Therefore, I don't know you, and I spew you out of my mouth. So neutrality might work for Switzerland, but it's not going to work in the big picture. What we're trying to achieve here is life. We're trying to get from the beginning of our life to the end of our life But according to the good book here, there's an afterlife. There's an eternity. And how did I get to all of this? How did I get this imagery in my mind? There was one scripture that started all this. And that scripture says, work out your own salvation with fear and trembling. And what does that even look like? What does that even mean? Does that mean we have to earn our salvation? No. It's all taken care of. He sent his son to die on the cross, to pay the price for my sins, for your sins, for everybody's sins. And it says it is by grace that you have been saved. And what is grace? That's being rewarded for something that you don't deserve. You didn't deserve to go to heaven, but you get to go to heaven because of the grace. Receiving that reward which you did nothing to deserve. That's grace. And it is by grace that you have been saved through faith. Faith is believing that he did it. That he came to the earth in the flesh, died on the cross, was resurrected on the third day, went back up to heaven. And, you know, the Old Testament talks about how they had to sacrifice animals because the blood covered the sins, and you were covered for a year. You had to come back and sacrifice another animal a year later to cover your new sins. It was a never-ending process. Well, he did it once and for all of humanity. Every one of us down here, any one of us who chooses him, believes in him, receives the grace. It is by grace that you have been saved through faith, and not of your own works, so that no one can boast. None of us are going to get to heaven and brag about what I got in here, what I didn't have over here, and boy, I only had one full basket. No, there's going to be nothing to brag about, because we all will have gotten there the same way. One way. Jesus. Because when I talk about God, I'm talking about a triune God. Father, the Son, the Holy Spirit. In the beginning was the Word was with God, the Word was God. The Word became flesh and dwelt among us. That's three in one. We're made in him, his image. We have a spirit, we have a mind, we have a body. That's three that become one. The three that he put into Revelations, that I would rather you be hot or cold, but you are neither. Therefore I spew you out of my mouth. That's another three. So when we look at the world around us, we're on the brink of World War III. You know, we're on the brink of civil war. We're on the brink of destruction at every turn. And we need unity. How do we get from here to here together? Through Christ. And that's the only way I can see. Because think about it this way. If I'm wrong about all of this, and I'm just going to live, and I'm going to die, and then that's it. That's the end of it. Then you and I are still in the same boat. I'm not going to heaven. You're not going to heaven. Neither one of us are going to hell. It doesn't matter. But if I'm right about all of this, and there is a God, there is a devil, there is a heaven, there is a hell, all of this makes perfect sense. It all adds up. Then what's going to happen to those who didn't get on the good side? You know, they didn't earn their way. He earned their way. But we have to accept that free ride, that free ticket. And it doesn't mean that I'm perfect. Not by any means. I'm a mess still. That's why I'm always trying to fix myself. Make it easier for me to get along with other people. But, you know, I'm still a mess. I'm a work in progress. You know, and I'm trying to understand him and his word And the more I read it, the more I understand it, and it just keeps getting bigger and bigger. You know, this whole presentation here has been rolling around in my head for weeks, and I've been practicing it and rehearsing it, and it seems like every time I watch another video, that's more data I gotta get in here, there's another idea I gotta get in here. It's been driving Jules crazy, I'll tell you, but hopefully she likes the result of this. Hopefully you like the result of this, because if you feel closer to me and how I see things and how I see as many people as possible from humanity to travel with me to achieve unity with God in heaven, then it's made all of this worthwhile. So, you know, perhaps you have a loved one that you feel distanced from. You've had some kind of falling out, some kind of argument, some kind of fight or whatever, and you want to be close with them again. Maybe sit down and watch this video together. Take this journey together and see if it brings you closer together. You know, we can't fix anybody but ourselves, because the only person that I have all the data, except for maybe this little bit down here, is me. I'll never collect that much data on anybody but me. So the only person I can fix is me. And this is a scale. The scale is a tool. Tools are used for fixing things. If you put anybody else in there, it becomes a mirror. Because however you see that person is probably what you have in common with that person. And even if it's somebody you don't like, then, you know, for me, if I see somebody that just gets on my nerves and I don't like them, and it's probably because I got something over here. I need to go digging through all the cookies and the brownies and see what buried underneath the cookies and the brownies. What did I overlook? Because there's something about that person that I don't like, but that person is probably just a mirror showing me why I don't like it, because I don't like it in me. I got to get it out. I can't take it out of the basket, but when I find it, I can come over here and counterbalance it and tip the scale in my favor, because I want my scale tipping this way. I don't want to go through life balanced. I don't mind being right leaning. That's good. It works for me. As long as I get there. And I want you to get there. And I want us to get there together in unity. You know, we're all different. Everybody along from here that makes it up there is going to be completely different. So different is good. When you have a difference of opinion with somebody, that's fine. It's going to happen. That's natural. Don't let it upset you. Don't let it interfere with the love that you have for each other. You know, if you make a list of physical things, that's easy. If you make a list of mental things, that's a little bit harder. You know, how many categories of your thoughts can you come up with? You know, when you look at spiritual, that's the unseen. We all have a heart. We all have a spirit. It's a life force inside of us that got us to the starting line and is going to be with us until the finish line. And the question is, where does that spirit go after the finish line when we reach the death, the end? Are we going to go to heaven or are we going to go to hell? Because the way I see it, that's the only two choices. Because even these neutral ones down here, if they're not going to heaven and they're not going to hell, where are they going to be? Are they going to cease to exist? Or are they going to be in hell with the other people that chose this? They chose to fill this basket. They chose to stick their nose up at him. They chose to question him and his word. You know, when our words and our actions don't match up, we're a hypocrite. That's very important. We need to find out. You know, for me, it's real important to know if I'm being a hypocrite. If I'm saying one thing and doing another, I want somebody to point it out to me. I want somebody to tell me, because I don't want to do that. Because so many people refrain from religion. But for me, it's not about religion. I don't attend a church. It's all about a one-on-one relationship. You know, I'm getting to know him, and I'm getting to know his word, and I'm using it to fix me. That's a one-on-one relationship. That's not religion, you know. I attended churches from coast to coast, and I never really found one because of the religion. This guy knows this word better than any of us, because he was there when it was written. But he uses it as a weapon. He uses it to cause division. He uses it to preach condemnation, you know, and people don't want anything to do with the Bible because they see people who are going to church as hypocrites, you know. They're like, I don't want to be like that. I'd rather just live my life and have fun, you know, do as I want to. That's liberalism. Do as thou wilt. And progressive liberalism. That's taking liberalism to the next level. Progress is not progressive. Progress is always moving forward. Progressive can be progressively backwards, progressively further and further from the source. If this was the Matrix, you'd be progressively further and further from the truth. The red pill represents truth. The blue pill represents the deception, the Matrix. It's all an illusion, you know, where you're just a slave to the illusion. You just want to, you know, be left alone, get by, give me something to eat, give me something to do, I'll be fine, just leave me alone, don't bother me, you know. So it's all choices. And every choice we make is going in one of our bag or the other. And another thing about people that don't believe in God, because they figure, why did he do all of this? Why would he ever create him and any of this to begin with? Well, it says his ways are not our ways, and his thoughts are not our thoughts, because his ways are above our ways, and his thoughts are above our thoughts. So I'm going to stick with him. Whether I can understand it all, whether I can justify it all, I don't know, but I believe it all. I have faith, and I believe. And the Bible says that when you take that step, and when you tear down the walls are meant to divide us. Different religious denominations are meant to divide us. That's all he wants is division. He doesn't care if we're divided on politics, race, religion, sex, gender, economic status, whether you're rich or poor. He doesn't care. He's caused division on so many levels. That's why when you look at our country, when you look at the world, it's all over the map. You would need, you know, how many baskets to figure out? You know, you put one group in this basket, one group in that basket, and how many baskets would it take to group us all together to where we're like-minded? It's just unfathomable. He wants division. He wants to bring us all together. And he provided a way for us to do that. And that's what I'm hoping to do, is to bring us all together into eternity, in unity. And it's probably impossible that I could do that, to bring the whole world's population. It's probably impossible for the whole world's population to see this video. But as many people as I can, I want to bring with me into eternity, in unity, and that's my goal. So share this video, sit down and watch it with someone you love if you think it's going to help you and them get along a little bit better, and we'll see how it goes. You know, I've been excited about this video and nervous at the same time, because this is just a simple sketch, but it's bigger than you can imagine. Love those words. Bigger than you can imagine. That's him. Bigger than we can imagine. He promised us that he can do exceedingly, abundantly, above and beyond all that we could ever dare to ask or think. And he gets all the glory. And it says that eye has not seen, nor ear heard, neither has it entered into the heart of man, into the mind of man, the things that He has in store for us. So once we get through this, there's only a few prophecies left in this Bible that haven't been fulfilled. And there's a lot of division on how it's going to play out. It doesn't matter to me how it plays out. I know who wins. I know which team I'm on. I know which side I'm on. I've made my choice. I hope you made your choice. And I hope to see you there. I hope to see you in the next video. Thank you so much for watching this one. God bless you. I love you. Shalom, peace, harmony, wholeness, prosperity, completeness, tranquility. That's all that I'm wishing for you. God bless you. I love you. I did it. Hallelujah.